Good morning and welcome to Daily Game Design. I was realizing, um, yeah, with so much like time and energy going into the retreat weekend, we're talking, lots of lots of meetings, lots of consistently checking in with different people, um, planning, imagining things, brainstorming things. Even though I was I was still consistently making progress in designs like after this weekend and just being able to decompress and um, like slow down a little, get back a little bit, get back to normalcy. I'm realizing I just want to like check in and see how these games are going. So I have notes in Discord and stuff, but um, it's kind of like reset. So what I've been saying since before the retreat is after this retreat, I'm really going to um, reevaluate my direction, how I'm spending my energy, and I'm talking like in general, like what are the purposes I'm driving toward, and uh, how am I going to shape my life, shape my lifestyle in such a way that I am consistently working toward these goals. Um, so yeah, I'm very interested in pursuing like the nonprofit or nonprofit like activities. I think that's a big thing. I'm interested in building up options for corporations because the thing is, like, I actually really enjoy what I'm doing in the ways I'm making money. I value teaching online. I love coaching writing. It's been a really positive experience. Of course, it's fairly draining, and I have around 25 active students. So helping those students maintain momentum is challenging. It's and then trying to keep up with the grading or catch up with the grading depending on the season. It's a lot. So um yeah, I really enjoy it. Just like anything, there are features of it that I find challenging, but anyway, I'm wondering how I can take steps toward more like financial freedom, sustainability. Well, I like subbing too. I like, I like these. Mm, yeah, like things are working for me. But I want to get clear on what I'm heading toward. Cut away things that don't really serve those goals. And it could even be that I'm already trying to spread out too thin, even by mentioning by mentioning nonprofit work and also working with corporations. Because here's like a smattering of what I imagine could be useful, could be interesting. I would really like to develop our an onboarding process for more families and friend groups to get into the hobby of gaming. So I think outreach would be important there, and so we're talking about partnering with libraries, schools, churches, and this is all in a way I would think of it as like service related as well. So even adding on like pieces like working with Kapuna, doing like senior home type of activities, like just having a group, like fostering a group of people that likes the outreach side, and then finding ways to get funding for that, so we don't have to monetize it. I think that'd be really neat. And obviously, that would fit it more into the nonprofit side of what we do. Now, when it comes to like actually providing services that people value and are willing to invest in and pay for, that'd be on the corporate side. That would be, with our events that we host. It could be what services we provide around um, running games for events, or for for like large, I guess I should say, large or small scale events. I've One thing I thought would be kind of interesting is if we, send people into homes where a group of friends or a family just wants to have a nice evening where they're interacting face to face. And so we have essentially expert teachers and facilitators going in with a menu of games and just like hosting an evening, 4 to 5 hours of play and healthy interaction. I think that would be an interesting service. I think people would be willing to invest in. So lots of potential, lots of things to think about. How you doing, Francisco? Welcome. But these are all things I feel like we need to build. Like, it's like this is the building the plane while you're flying it kind of a thing, because I still, I'm still paying rent. So, like how to develop these other streams of income or other services while I still have these financial pressures, right? It's kind of the ultimate puzzle. So anyway, it looks like I'm hearing from Rob. I think he. So I reviewed the first couple of pages of Rob's rules yesterday. Where did he? I think I saw a comment somewhere. Maybe not. Yeah, that's what I figured, Francisco. Is like you're kind of in a similar state in that you're working on building things you find meaningful and interesting and important, and at the same time you have a lot of family responsibilities. And you're just as a person, just as a man, there are things you just have to pay for, and like hours of work you need to put in to keep things moving, to keep things afloat in your life. So yeah, it's like how can we yeah, build the planes we're flying. It's an interesting puzzle. So it looks like we got a nice thorough response from Rob. I think I also see a Facebook message. Anyway, don't need to. This one's public. I'll just kind of have a look at this really quick, and then from here, I'll jump back into my Discord and just like peruse my designs and just check in on them, see how they're doing. That's like my game plan, and from there, because while I'm trying to do this community stuff, I still really want to stay super engaged in design and in the gaming industry more broadly. So how to stay, how to continue working with people on rule books, how to keep designing and pitching. These are all things like I also want to participate in. So finding ways to achieve momentum in any one area, I guess, is a real challenge. But it's like I love all this stuff. Why would I need to say no to any of it? That's the thing. Mixing mechanics and themes in the same paragraph issue. That was a bigger problem in earlier drafts. I'll make it a point to try to specifically separate out talking about mechanics, components, rules in a section as opposed to thematic elements. I'll try to be consistent with remove the zombie card type stuff while when refers to mechanics as opposed to kill the zombies. Yeah, right. Oh, that's good. It's kind of easy, I think, as designers to be caught up in our own stories, right? In our own theming, and while what we understand that there's an atmosphere we're trying to create, a feeling we're trying to create of, with tension and other aspects for our players. It's easy to overlook or to kind of forget the fact that players just need to know how to move things around, where they go, what what kinds of, yeah, like just like stuff in physical space, like they just need to know what to do with things. And that is ultimately the real priority. It's not the story, it's not the feelings, Although that's nice if the packaging, if the story, the theming, and the mechanical relationship a player has to components, it's nice if those overlap. But the priority has to be mechanics. It must be. Players must know what to do, right? That's the main thing. They don't need to know how to feel. They need to know what to do, and it's kind of easy to get those wires crossed, I think. Where you see structural, it seems the big issue you see is structural. There's always the problem of what do you explain first with rules? I get it. That's right. Yes, absolutely. Chose to go intro component setup, how to win. Yeah. Trying to guide players logically through what the pieces are, how to set up the game, how to win, how to play your turn. Now I'll put together with a play example at the end. So would it be correct that you think organizing it differently might make it easier to comprehend? Maybe. I don't think so. I really don't. Not an example of play exactly. Um, yeah, the standard. You know what? You know what that is, Francisco? Um that is really funny. So you're gonna feel a little bit sad about this, I imagine, Francisco. The reason that I often, well, I have two reasons. Uh, One of the reasons why I often leave my arm up here is that it's uncomfortable to let my arm hang. So I have like, so jokes on you, Francisco. Yeah, so I have a lot of discomfort on my left side with my shoulder and shoulder blade areas, and so actually taking the weight off is one of the few ways that I can get comfortable. The other thing is that I definitely like impulsively like kind of play with my hair, and that's like most of my life. So those two things come together for me to be sitting much like this. So anyway, jokes on you, Francisco. The challenge is that in that case, an example of play would then be the portion that includes things that haven't been explained yet, but maybe that would give readers, future players, less to have to carry through and remember as they go through the rest of the rules. Let me know what you think. I may make a pass through organizing the structure of the rules based on the video. Well, this is a tough one. So I also realize I may not be fair here in what I'm doing because it's pretty messed up to just slam somebody's rule book. Although I hope that's not what I was doing. I hope that's not exactly what it feels like. I don't mean to slam somebody's rule book and then say, "Well, sorry, I don't have any time to follow up with you," because clearly I I inspired a conversation and naturally. So um yeah, this is the ultimate puzzle, right? It's figuring out when players need to know things or when do they have the tools to understand things. Huge puzzle, and without spending a lot of time understanding the game, I wouldn't really be able to answer how to piecemeal out information so that you're holding their hand through the process. There were mechanics that I ran into where clearly something has happened here. Like uh, cards moved somewhere somehow, and I don't know how they got there. So I don't know how to relate to what to do now, right? So that was the ultimate issue I found, and that's what you're highlighting. It's the this idea of like, but maybe that, let's see, less to carry through and remember as they go through the rest of the rules. It's mostly like I felt like more of what I ran into was I just don't understand how things got this way. So I need to know the very early steps of how things move and how things work in order to understand the types of rules I was running into, which are if this is the state, this is what happens. Well, how did the state develop? That's the main question. What are some of the very earliest um, types of things that can happen in the game? So Anyway, I really don't mean to do a disservice here. I want it to be just here's an early impression, without understanding your game. Of course, that's kind of the point. Is I'm I'm essentially doing an unguided play test of the rules, although I'm not manipulating components. Um, I would hate for this to be more frustrating for a designer because I gave them 45 minutes of of uh, of response, but then don't follow up with them. It could be a little bit unfair, and anyway, just definitely need to consider this more carefully. I'm not trying to make enemies by. I'm trying to help. I guess is the thing. Um, okay, so I'll follow up with Rob later. Okay, so since reorganizing the Discord server here, all of my games are now in a forum, and or at least all the designs that I have been working on up until this point, they're all now in a forum. They still have their names, their labels. Um, and what's nice, so the forum actually provides a few affordances where I can actually tag things. So I could make this one Dust Bowl. It's currently tagged as inactive. Let me see how this works actually. So maybe edit tags. Yeah, so I could just do that, and suddenly when I filter, then it would show up. I have not been working on Dust Bowl, so I labeled it as inactive for now. The 4 games that show up in the active list, these are I consider these active because for different reasons. One is that in this case, ADRA, this is paid work. I'm working as a freelancer for ADRA, the Advanced Development and Relief Agency, to build this card game. It's still ongoing. The rulebook is incomplete. They have, in fact, I want to remember to write an email, because with the retreat being behind me now, and their trip being behind them, they went to Thailand with a few copies of the game. Very curious to see whether players understood it, picked it up, or whether they bounced off of it. I don't want to. I find that I find I can catastrophize, and actually a little an interesting example of that just came back to mind. I'll tell you what it is very briefly here, but this was Friday morning, so I did not stream Friday morning at the start of the retreat. I just had so much going on, but I was packing. My friend Adam was staying with me for the week, and he said, "How can I help?" Well, one way is you can just go grab my car. And wow, this is going to get a little bit more involved as a story than I expected, but just to illustrate what happened. So my apartment, the parking is horrible. So, the streets are confusing, and then I have to check sometimes multiple areas in order to find parking. So it can be just very sort of complicated and frustrating. Anyway, this is my neighborhood. Here, there's the Kuakini Hospital is up here, and there's the entrance to my apartment. There's parking up along this area right here. The ideal parking is right here, and then anyway, Frog Lane is where my place is. So sometimes I have to park across the bridge down here. Stillman doesn't really offer much, but up here toward the hospital. And anyway, so Adam he rented a car, and he was dealing with a lot of parking challenges, and just kind of getting to know the area was a pain, because if you check School Street, I really don't want to spend a crazy amount of time on this, but if you check School Street, which is along here, and there's no parking, you have to do a full loop. to go all the way around the block to come back this way and park. Well, anyway, so I sent him out. I sent Adam out to get my car, which was parked just about right here. And yeah, it was parked right in this area. So my apartment is here, which is just like 2 corners away from my apartment, from where my car was parked. So I sent him to get the car, and I was packing. I was moving stuff out because there's no parking space for me. There's no great parking right by my apartment, so I have to cross our little lane. And I was dropping stuff off in the little parking lot in, just across the lane to prep to load my car. So I took a few loads out, and I'm thinking, wait a second, Adam isn't back yet. What's up with that? So then I decided to go check. I just walked. All I did was walk out over here, which is like less than a minute walk. My car and all the other cars that I parked near were gone. And parking has been incredibly difficult these days, especially because there's more construction happening now. They're reducing the number of parking spaces around me. So it's like really competitive, and I was parked in a no parking area. A lot of people park in these no parking areas, and we just kind of get tickets a lot of the time. So, like, it's just not good. But I figured, okay, well, maybe they're being extra sensitive. Adam is nowhere to be seen. My car is gone. And so are the other cars I was parked with illegally. Did we all get towed? That was my first thought. It was, okay, this is like, Adam, what is he doing? Is he looking for my car because he wouldn't think that it was towed? Where did he go? Did he understand that I was talking about this section and not somewhere over here? So I did a little loop to like look for Adam. I called him, went to voicemail. So I was very confused. I just really didn't understand. And my first thought was, with all of, trying to make sense of these things, I just thought, oh, wow. So Adam is off trying to be helpful looking for my car, but my car is towed. And I was just about to leave to go meet people for moving, loading our library up to take up to camp. So all this was to say that catastrophizing is definitely, a thing that I can fall into. Well, what turned out to be the case is I was, I went back to my apartment and I found, I think I was in there kind of moving stuff around, trying to get a hold of Adam again, texting people to update them. Yeah, I'm going to be late. And then I see Adam come back, and I was just so confused. And what turned out to be the case is he just got turned around. He kind of forgot that you just turn this way and come down to my place. Instead, he went out Stillman thinking that he could drive up Frog Lane, where Frog Lane's a one-way road. So instead, he was on School Street, another one-way road, and so he had to do a full lap. It just took him way longer than normal to get back to my place. So, yeah, that was just kind of a really random, weird development. So why did I get into that story? It just reminded me because I haven't heard anything from the Adra folks, and so my feeling would be that if they got back, the game went well, then then everything would get moving, and they would reach out and say, "Oh, the game was awesome," and whatever. If it didn't go so well, I would think it'd be easier to hesitate to reach out to me. So I don't want to believe that that is the case, but it's totally possible. So I'm going to reach out to them, send an email. Yeah, that digression, totally unnecessary, but what a crazy moment. Where just my mind just like put all these weird pieces together in such a wrong way. It was crazy. So, okay, Adra, I feel the game is fairly complete since adding the kind of the run element where you can like you're moving through each of the 3 levels of difficulty of cards. And so we have the two branches in that game. It's a real-time game. No, it's not real-time. It's a timed game where you are cooperatively racing the clock, trying to meet the needs of all of these like emergencies around the world. And it's card play. You are. It's very much like 5 Minute Dungeon. In your hand, you have cards that have icons. And you need to use those icons to pay for icons shown on these like emergency cards or mission cards. And once you match all the icons, then that emergency essentially met the needs of the emergency. The mission is done. Sweep that aside, and it will usually reveal another emergency. And until all those cards are gone, you have to keep doing this turn by turn. You know, it's fast paced. It's kind of intense, and by itself, like just the base game, there's very little replayability. So what we did is add two branches, and the branches include special abilities and this like sort of mini campaign mode. It's not really a campaign, but it's like a multi-phase, multi-round challenge. So you can play with all the different special abilities. You can play through this, you know, the multi-round challenge. You can also play with the special abilities in the multi-round challenge. So that was to increase replayability. I feel really good about where those, you know, where that is, where the game is, but it doesn't mean that it connected well with the audience. So waiting to hear back from them, but this game is considered active because it's essentially incomplete, but I'm getting paid to do it. So we need to kind of keep it going. It needs to be on one of the burners, right? So anyway, need to email. So the state of this game is I feel like it's pretty good. The rulebook probably needs some work, but I need to reconnect with Adra to make sure that we're moving forward, getting the artwork done and getting the rulebook laid out, that kind of stuff. Okay, Sugar Shack. Sugar Shack was you know what I can probably do here is actually bring these up on TTS just to wow, my computer reset, so all this stuff opened again. And so I imagine my laptop is stressed right now. So I'll actually show you Adra HQ. I think in its most up to date form. I actually don't remember if I really. I think I did update all the cards with the most recent artwork. So placeholder artwork. Well, okay, Sugar Shack. Sugar Shack, I pushed to get done by January, February. The reason is that that this wasn't an invitation, but the CEO, John, he said, you know, keep working at it. We're willing to look at it again, but just hold off until next year. So and this is, I think it was May, June that I was working on the game, and I had pitched it to them originally, and then I got the email back from John Zinzer, I believe. And so I really had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to pitch it again as the game matured, as I play tested. It's changed a lot, and I'm really proud of where it is right now. Even in its most recent iteration, it's changed a lot. It was primarily a card game with some other components, meeples, cubes, but everything was meant to. I tried to contain all of the information, essentially turning a board into a set of cards. So that was the situation. However, after a more recent playtest, I found that trying to squeeze everything onto cards was really working against me. All the cards had different layouts. They were very busy. It was hard. Excuse me. It was hard to achieve consistency so that the player's eyes knew where to look. So it was just kind of like, you know what? Just let it go, make a board, lay out all the different ways to interact with all the different town locations. Just lay those out on a board and just shift. Allow your mind to shift what you think is important here. So or shift away from the commitment to this being like a super small box game. Yeah. Well, now what we see, and I don't think I've actually had any like complete play tests with this yet. I don't even think I've printed this out. Huh, maybe I have. I have to look. I have like a folder where I have the physical copies of some of the full sheet games. Well, anyway, the state of this game, it's definitely back into playtesting mode. AEG passed on it. What I would love is for this game. I've been playing a lot of the White Castle recently. In fact, I just bought the White Castle and the Matcha expansion last night. Been playing online. I was reminded how much I like this game, the White Castle. I played it over the weekend. It's one of the few games I let myself enjoy during the retreat. Such a cool, compact Euro. And that is really that size, that the compactness of it really inspired me. I actually it more directly inspired Dust Bowl, which I have not been working on these days. But actually, like mechanically and even the form factor is kind of the starting point I took on with Dust Bowl. But here now it looks like Sugar Shack is actually heading that direction, with a little board, with more. I guess that's the main thing. It's just the fact that there's a board now. But I would love for DeVere to pick up something like this. I think that'd be really, really special. You know, a small box, really crunchy Euro, I think would be awesome if I could achieve something like that with Sugar Shack. Anyway, I consider it active because of this more recent push to get it done so I could repitch it. And I don't see it, I don't really know where to go with it. I need to play test it some more, especially with the virtual playtesting group. And just kind of hopefully it settles in here with this style, with everything working on the board. I could send it to Player Layer to have them test it and maybe even develop it a little bit. But the question is, who would take such a game? That's the big puzzle. And I really feel like DeVere, or actually, you know what? No. My first pitch is going to be to Paverson Games. Paverson, I still unfortunately don't know how to pronounce that. But that's my intention, is to see if they'll onboard the game, because they seem to enjoy like artisan maker kinds of games, because you've got distilled and you also have luthier. So I think a maple syrup themed game would work. And one of the reasons why I keep at this and I keep tinkering with like the flow of cubes is because since Paverson really tries to integrate theme and mechanics and really highlight the process of a thing being done, even though in Luthier it really, or at least involve something like a very abstract representation of the process. In Distilled, you are doing something with cards related, where you do, I forget what it's called, but the stuff you skim off the top of a distillation and the stuff that you would throw out that's like the sediment of a distillation. I really don't know the process. But they represent that mechanically, and it's important mechanically in the game. In Luthier, you have instruments that are roughed, or they're like on the workbench, and they're in the rough form, and then they're like in the finished form. And all it is moving a card from the left side of your player board to the right side of your player board after having paid some resources to do that. I think, or you have to take that action. I forget exactly, but anyway, even though okay, it's not like, well, this is exactly how you make an instrument. They still represent the process. And so what I did was um, add a step to the maple syrup making, re-add a step that I had cut. So at one point, I went kind of wild in trying to represent how the process works, even to the point that I had multiple cubes that over a series of turns, like they dwindle down, showing like the evaporation process. Well, that was too much. It was too much cube pushing. Until I ended up with, here's the sugar bush. The cubes will go into the evaporator and then they'll go into storage. Well, then after some feedback from a friend who was just like frustrated with this like multi-step process, I actually cut um, the evaporator and just had cubes go directly to the sugar shack so that players could focus more on what was going on in town. What I realized then uh, was that the process is not represented really at all. It was cubes turn into sap in the trees turns into syrup, and it's magical. So at least I wanted to reintroduce the step where it at least slows it down a little bit. It adds one more step to the production. Um, well, anyway, now there are now there's a location where players are actually going to have to use meeples to move the cubes from the evaporator to the storage. I feel like it's a healthy reintroduction of theme, and I like it, and I just need to play test it. So that is essentially, I feel good about having left behind the all cards um, commitment. Now we have this game board that looks a lot clearer. Yes, it's still busy, and yes, it would still take energy to teach what all these locations do. But I feel that the iconography is much clearer. The layout helps a lot because what your eyes should see are these locations for meeples. Next to the meeple is a cost, and then a consequence or an effect, and then attached in this kind of green um, green blob, are the things that are connected to that building. So I like it a lot. I like that each has a name. I like that each has shows just like one distinct building that's fairly clear. And I think I've simplified things a lot and cleaned up things a lot, so that the game should actually flow well, but should still feel very crunchy, like an actual Euro experience. So now that I look at the White Castle and Devere in their small box Euros, I dream of this game fitting. I don't know if I would need to add things or change things, but I think it'd be really neat for Devere to have a look at this. Still starting with Paverson. I'm going to go with Paverson. I'm going to pitch it to them. Now that the retreat is over, I'll feel good about making some materials, but I just need to play test this first. I don't want to send something to them that is not functioning well. So, okay, so that is Sugar Shack. Next on the active list is Solar Smugglers. This is the one that I've been most energetically working on, most enthusiastically working on. I'll open it now. And what do I want to do with this game? What do I want to do next? First of all, I would love to get Ricky Tata to have a look at it. I want to remember to reach out to him. I took the game that he was a champion for at the BGG Con last November. He encouraged Travis to sit down with me, and Travis is the CEO of Indie Board and Dice. Is it Indie Board and Cards? I forget. and also Stronghold. Ricky is the designer of Coup, and he encouraged Travis to give me some time to pitch. But I was pitching a much more trite version. Trite is not the right word. I don't diminutive. It was a smaller experience. Uh, I pitched basically a version of this game that was just these cards and just these cards. But now we have a map. We have more things going on these cards. And I think the game has very much matured. I'm confident of that. I haven't gotten to play test it yet. So I'm certain there will be plenty of changes to come. But I think the game is bigger, crunchier. It will feel more complete, and it's a bigger investment. Well, an investment on the publisher side in that there are more components involved, but also more of a commitment on the player's side because um, I think the original game, which I was calling, well, it evolved actually. I rethemed what was it? I rethemed Oil in My Lamp to be Long Winter's Nap, and from Long Winter's Nap, that was themed around animals collecting collecting food for the winter and like trying to basically survive the winter cold. Uh, Transitioned from that, inspired by Beyond the Sun, to introduce a little map like this. Went from that to being like these space smugglers, solar smugglers that are delivering items around the solar system, and the whole time in the back of their minds they know a solar storm is coming and they need to be ready to like charge the shields to survive the solar storm. But they are spending energy, they're spending resources um, to get victory points. And anyway, so this is the auction game. The auction is still important to this game. The resolution with this like sort of row of cards that are going to challenge the players to lose by losing a bunch of resources that they need to protect their victory points. That's all still relevant, but I think the map and like there's a little robot or there's a little police bot that travels around as well. I think all of this really will make the game feel just like a more complete experience. Well, who would be interested in this? I'm not sure, but this definitely needs playtesting. I think it's probably going to have some really serious problems with having players who don't understand the auctions and end up getting dragged through the vacuum of space, not being able to catch up, being out of the game from very early on. If they like overcommit to an auction that doesn't really pay off. So I'm a little nervous about that. And even though I have like a little loan system where players are going to be able to sort of get back in the game if they're all out of credits and the money that they use in the auctions. Even though that's true, I have a feeling it's still going to be potentially like a runaway leader sort of a problem. Yeah, so Solar Smugglers, it's very much in the playtesting phase. It's still very, very early. I think it's going to feel very unbalanced. So I'm curious to see what this one's going to need. Also, I don't have a clear idea of who might be interested in this game. But I'm gonna check back in with Ricky, show it to him, and hopefully get his ideas on what I could do next. Okay, then Party Wave. Party Wave is the game I've actually been playtesting the most consistently. And I made changes recently after a playtest a couple of weeks ago where it's just clear that players were that the game, it was just too easy. There was very little pushing your luck because there was just very much there was a high likelihood that you were going to be able to roll what you wanted to roll, and that had to do with the dice requirements, the placement requirements. I mean, so the main idea was you can continue to push your luck. You can continue roll. You roll your dice at the start of your turn. You need to place all of one number in those results. So if I roll these, then I pick one of these values and I place all dice of that value. So I could choose to place 2 6s. Actually, no, I can't. I'm at the start of the wave. There's no way to place 6s. Okay, but let's say I pick this 4. So the 4 starts on this row, this of the 4 row. The 4 is shown right here. Now, if I had placed more than one die, my turn would be over, and I would mark the die closest to shore. Shore is over here. Well, but if you only place one die, however, you get to continue rolling. And so now the placement rules, though, are that you could place a die whose value was equal to or 1 less than or 1 greater than this die right here, the one closest to shore. So you could place these 2 4s. And you could you could try to make your shape or whatever. So because you placed more than one die, your turn will be over. However, if you place this 3, for example, you could roll again. Same rules apply. So it's just whenever you place only one die, you can continue your turn. This is the push your luck element. Well, now this player is kind of stuck because they have to place both of these numbers, either the 3s or the 4s. So their turn is done. However, the issue was that, let's say this is exactly what happened. So a player had made progress down here. It's just a timing thing. I shouldn't get into the details here. But the way that the turn order worked, it's that you would check to score something at the start of your turn. If you score, that generally means you're removing dice off the board. Okay, so you're making more space for other players. So this was, actually I can show the situation. So by checking for scoring at the start of your turn, if you end your turn right here, let's say, on this shore space, then this player is basically stuck, right? Until, actually this was the case. So something like this. So this player, red finishes a wave on their turn. Then yellow takes a turn and they place here. Well, red needs to score next turn, and so they'll remove these dice. However, what the rules then say is you take your turn as normal. So what red actually did was they rolled and they rolled. They kept being able to place 1, right? So it was basically a situation like this, where red was in the way at the end of their last turn. Then they score. Then they end up in the way at the end of their next turn. So they basically block off yellow twice. No, they get in yellow's way such that yellow basically falls off the wave. They have no choice. So in other words, what happened was that it was just too easy for red to roll back in. So the push your luck element wasn't really there. And it's because you could roll 1 up, 1 down, or the same as. So it was just 50% chance to roll dice you needed. 50% is way too high. So we were thinking about how can you change this so that it's like harder for red to roll back into the way. Of course, they would have started with a 2 here because they're in the row for 2s. But how can you make it more difficult? So what I want to test this next time is you have to place one up or one down. You cannot place the same value. And I think that changes the odds enough so that I'm starting to get some responses. I've been texting people, just checking in with people post retreat still today. So just getting a lot of notifications all of a sudden. I don't know why. Anyway, I think that tweak will fix this problem, and it will actually make it less likely for a player to be able to do this. Hopefully that's it. Hopefully the rest of the game is working, even though it still feels a little unintuitive. The way, like the round structure, or the turn structure feels slightly unintuitive. Anyway, I'll need to go back into my notes for that. Let me do that just very briefly here, because I am more curious at this moment about where we left off with Party Wave. Okay, yes, getting rid of equal. I also think add fall off the wave check to the score check. Right, so what we also found in that game was that it was actually pretty easy to bully people. And I didn't like that. I don't know what to do about that. But one of the reasons it was possible to bully somebody is that you're leaving this long tail of dice behind you. So the more you roll, you're just continuing down the wave. And so somebody stops here. No, let me not do it with my fingers. So let's say purple stops in here. Maybe they started just like this. And then blue like swings around. Well, actually, let's say red is in this situation. Okay, blue just simply rolls down and swings around here and just cuts off purple. So somebody did that their very first turn. So this was actually a situation where, like, just like this, purple ended their turn and they'd made a shape, they were excited about it, and then blue just swings in and cuts them off. Blue could have gone here to leave purple alone, but intentionally blue wanted to sort of see what happened if they played like aggressively, sort of. And so what ended up happening throughout the game is that our purple player, I'm trying to think of her name. She just basically had turn after turn that felt useless and like frustrating because she couldn't make any progress. This happened again, and I don't think she ever finished a wave. Out of like 5 or 6 turns, I don't think she ever finished a wave. So being able to push somebody around like that to me is not cool. So there are some challenges left with Party Wave, but I feel like Party Wave is close. Just needs some key to unlock, how to keep the tension and competition, but not allow for this type of like just bullying, pushing somebody around, like basically erasing them from the game. So that's the challenge. I would like to pitch this game to all play. I'd like to pitch to Gamehead, Paul at Gamehead, and just kind of see, this sort of light, quick playing, but still fairly technical, tactical game. I think it's not super gateway friendly. It's as I said, I think before, one of my friends tried an earlier iteration and said, "Wow, this game's complicated." In my mind, you're rolling dice, placing dice, right? And so I've lost some perspective, lost some perspective on what it's like to be a gateway gamer. So anyway, I'm really close to the end of my hour. I was really glad to sort of get my head around, just like reevaluate where these designs are. I'm very proud of all of them. And when somebody asks me like, "What are you working on?" or "What games? What kind of games do you design?" I think what's really cool here, I don't know that I see themes exactly. I mean, what I mean is patterns in my designs, except that I really love to try to locate pure tension, um, emergent tension, or tension that emerges from simple systems. That's ideally what I'm after. I feel like I'm really inspired by small game designers, or like really designers of very clean games. This is of course Reiner Knizia. Another one of my favorites is Paolo Mori, and just how they're able to squeeze really engaging um it is tension, isn't it? Decision making and tense gameplay from very very simple processes and mechanics. I just love it. I'm thinking of, for example, Through the Desert. Um, what are some other Lost Cities? I mean, some of my favorites. There's also Ethnos or Archaeos Society. There's Blitzkrieg from Palomori. So I think it's just it's so cool how they can keep things streamlined and simple, and yet there's so much drama, right? So much interaction, and I just love it. So that's essentially part of my ideal. These are my design goals: real choices, streamlined mechanics, but really really fun emergent tension and engaging decision making. Those, that's kind of what I feel like is the ideal recipe for a design. So I think that's it for me. I'm gonna transition away just a few minutes early, but thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you back here tomorrow. I'm glad to establish some, get back into routine, um, figure out what normalcy looks like again after the retreat as we move forward. So yeah, appreciate your time and attention and interest. And yeah, bye bye for now.